Welcome back, Soul Tribe, to David Berry 75's channel. I'm your guest reader, Toni, and we're going to continue on with Stellar Man by John Baines. And if you would like to contribute by being a guest reader, contact David either by email or contact him on Discord. And we're on Chapter 10, The 7 Keys of Wisdom. The Principle of Mentalism. The Principle of Mentalism states that all is mind. The universe is mental. In this, the first of the 7 Hermetic principles, it is stated that the universe is mental and that the only essential reality of all things is mind. The universe in itself is a mental creation. We live within the mind of God, who maintains the cosmos in the same way someone sustains a thought by mental concentration. The Kybalion, a compendium of Hermetic principles, gives us 2 aphorisms which illustrates our knowledge. 1, the infinite mind of all is the womb of the universe. The second one, the all creates in its infinite mind countless universes which exist for eons of time, and yet to the all, the creation, development, decline, and death of a million universes is as the time as the blinking of an eye. It is thus that God, or the all-mental, created life through thought, just as man can create a universe within his own mind. The great creator visualizes creation and projects this towards the cosmic egg, given origin of life in its infinite manifestation. In this way, the Hermeticist is not greatly concerned with studying the chemical composition of the elements, but prefers the study of the principle of mind, the essential composition of all that exists: animals, minerals, vegetables, men, gods, planets, galaxies, universes, matter, and energy. All is mind. The universe is mental. For this reason, in the entire cosmos, there are some laws. There are the same laws, those of the mind. Mental energy is manifested on an infinite scale of vibrations, from the densest to the most subtle. The combination of these vibrations, similar to the mixture of musical notes from a piano, produces the different elements of material of the universe, with different characteristics between them, but with the intrinsic nature formed by mind. It is due to this that the ancient alchemists believed in the transmutation of lead or any other metal into gold as the intrinsic composition of all metals in exactly the same mind. In particular, our physical body is mind. Our bones, blood, nervous system, intelligence, spirit, and our thoughts, all is mind. The all mind, God, if you want to call it that, is infinite, eternal, immutable, and unknowable. The all mind is neither energy nor matter. It is something superior to this. It is a living and infinite mind, which can also be called spirit, a real essence. The all mind has always existed and will always exist. It is the absolute, which is beyond all understanding. All that is infinite, mutable, and transformable cannot be the all. Since nothing exists beyond this, in reality, all which is finite must really be nothing. The Kybalion places before us the following Hermetic question: what is the universe? If nothing can exist beyond the all, then is the universe all? No, this cannot be so. as the universe seems to be made of multiple units and consistently changes, then if the universe is not all, it must be nothing. We still have senses and feel the existence of the universe. And if the universe is something and is not the awe, then what can it be? Simply stated, it is a mental creation of the all. This is the origins of the well-known Hindu principle of Maya. The Hindus say that all is Maya. Translated, this means all is illusion. Certainly, a thought of ours is illusion. If we have imaginatively created the personage of a small, green-eyed old man with a walking stick made from a branch of a tree, the personage is a fantasy and an illusion from our material point of view, but absolutely tangible, concrete, and real for the matter, elements, or personages of our imaginative dreams. A ghost is a ghost for the physical man, but a material being for another ghost. It will pass through the wooden doors, but not through the doors for ghost, made for the ghost wood. An automobile manufactured by thoughts, imaginary cannot collide with a material vehicle, but it can collide with another imaginary car, as it is on the same vibration or within the same density of matter. We must understand that as sapiens, creatures of flesh and blood, we are located on a specific vibrational level, and we occupy a space in the order of the universe. We should reflect on the fact that for us, matter is only that energy with vibrationary characteristics similar or identical to our own, and that energy will be the opposite pole. On the other hand, for a man whose body is made up of energy of a different vibrationary state, matter for him will be the energy similar to that constituting his body. Therefore, neither matter nor energy exists. There exists only one primordial energy, matter or essence, which compromises everything. If we could escape from our classification in the universe and join the all mind, participating in its nature, the universe would instantly disintegrate. Only for us, as we would have changed the observer's situation or position. It is not difficult to understand that if, from the point of view of the absolute, all is illusion, then from our mortal situation, nothing is illusion, because all that occurs affects what we can see and feel. Now, as sapiens, we have been made in the image of God and have within us the divine spark. If the corporeal part of us is finite, relative, and mutable, the divine spark of spiritual essence is the absolute. Reflecting on this will lead us to a transcendental discovery. Sapiens is the only being in the universe who participates both in the nature of the thinker, God, the divine spark, as well as in the structure of the imagined by the thinker, the material world, the physical body. By understanding this principle, it is possible to get an idea of the reason why man was created. He is the instrument used by God to create the material of the universe within his thought. The supreme creator uses man's brain to create life. Within this process of creation, we can distinguish two stages: 1, man, God of his own universe. 2, man, the organ of the creation of life, the sexuality of God. In the first stage, sapiens imagine an entire universe within his thoughts, a process astonishingly similar to creation by divinity. It should be asked if in this universe imagined by sapiens, there are not also planets, galaxies, vegetables, minerals, and even ourselves on another dimensional scale. In reality, that which is infinitely great becomes confused with the infinitely small. We cannot say when something will become so small as to disappear or so large as to disintegrate. We really believe there is an entire universe in the thought of each man, and for him, this passes within a second. For those who live in his imagination, millions of years could have passed. In the second stage, life is created by man within the imagination, and existing within his mental universe passes from this world to the universe of God, where man himself lives. That is, his mental density is similar to that of his creator. It is possible that the same may happen to man, and that at a given moment he may pass to another universe higher than the one we know. The understanding that all is illusion, all is Maya, can perturb one who is not prepared for this truth. For in his own vulgar interpretation, he would have us believe that if all is illusion, it is not worthwhile doing anything, because ultimately nothing has any value if all is nothing. This error should not be committed. It stems from placing oneself on the level of an observer existing outside of the universe. The spiritual betterment promised by Hermeticism consists of the development, strengthening, growth, and evolution of the divine part of sapiens, what is usually called the spirit. This essential part is developed at the expense of the honoric, the illusory, and thus sapiens can be converted into a mutant, an individual whose center of gravity shifts from the illusory to the absolute existence within himself, his own spirit, which is an emanation of God. This very profound change enables the individual to gradually begin to understand the truth and finally reach the knowledge of absolute truth, which is immutable, immortal, and eternal, and which does not suffer change as time goes by, because it is beyond time. In the end, only absolute truth is completely truthful, as relatively can only encircle a small section of the absolute. It is due to this that Hermeticism, as proclaimed by the Kabbalion, speaks of the wise and the semi-wise. These latter are those who are limited to have knowledge of the illusory world of Maya, the world imagined by the great creator, without ever ascending to the original source of all that exists. They are a species of sages from the world of phantoms, the honoric world. The true Hermetic sage becomes polarized within the essential part of himself, and then his spirit manifests through his own brain. He avoids the world of honoric fantasy in order to penetrate into the level of the great thinker, where the absolute resides. This explains why personality, the means of adapting to the illusory in order to become blind is reference to its inherent nature impedes the individual's higher spiritual development by blocking his contact with reality. Generally, the more programmed a person is, the more difficult it will be for him to alleviate himself to the knowledge of the world of the absolute. The Principle of Correspondence. The Principle of Correspondence states, as above, so below. As below, so above. This Hermetic principle refers to the similarity between the various vibrationary planes or classifications that exist within the arrangement of the universe. The great scale of life runs from matter to spirit, existing in the midst of an infinite vibrationary scale. Within this range, the same law acting on density, for example, also acts on that which is spiritual or subtle. This is a correspondence or similarity among all cosmic phenomena, and the study of this analogy enables one to reach the unknown commencing from what is known. For example, astrology is based on the supposition that man is a microcosm, and he has inside himself an analogous replica of the universe, and that by means of this basic outline, we are joined to the planets of our solar system and are influenced by them. The chart of the horoscope endeavors to reach the design of the internal vital structure by means of the law of correspondence. The planet manifests their influence through the different parts of our body with which they correspond. We know that Aries corresponds to the head and Pisces to the feet, and there's a sympathetic connection between the zodiacal signs, its ruling planet, and the area of the body dominated by it. A talisman is an object through which a magnetic relationship can be established between the individual to be protected and the corresponding cosmic force. The cosmos influences man with its energy, but at the same time, it also influenced by man. Here is a principle of feedback whose exact dimensions we cannot visualize. It is said that if a person throws a pebble into a lake, this simple act will someday influence the boundaries of the universe in some way. Universal unity exists in the sense that all is united to all. We cannot separate ourselves from people or from our environment. You, the reader, are joined by an invisible thread to each inhabitant of our planet and to all beings that exist in the cosmos. If you hate someone, you are destroying yourself. If you wish to wreak revenge on someone, that forces you to set in motion will eventually fall upon you. Let us remember the Christian's principles based on pure Hermeticism. Do unto others what you would have them do unto you, or love one another. This principle of correspondence is explained by the fact that all is mind. The universe is mental. Mind energy is the common nexus of all that exists. As there is external correspondence with that which is external, this also exists within our body and also in the relations to the opposite sex. Let us observe the likeliness between the tonsils and the testicles or ovaries, between the spermatozoon and the medulla oblongata in the brain, or the relation between that latter and the sex. In this case, the loss of sexual sensitivity is often derived from increased intellectual sensitivity and vice versa. This is shown by an insatiable sexual appetite or lechery, which generally leads to a deterioration of intelligence with respect to the opposite sex. We can see that the penis corresponds to the clitoris and the uterus to the prostate. Sympathetic magic is the art of establishing artificial correspondence between a person and a wax figure, talisman, plant, or any other object. In this way, the influence received by the wax doll will finally be directed towards the individual who has served as the model. Based on the same principle, as an individual can enter into correspondence with a tree or a plant and transfer his own illness to them, being thus equivalently healed. Acupuncture shows us a case of the advantageous use of corporeal equivalences, where through stimulation on the lobe of the ear, a headache can be cured. At first, it is very difficult to believe that there can be any relationship between the lobe of the ear and the head, but concrete experience has proven that there is. It is possible by means of the needle used in acupuncture to cure any ailment or to lessen pain. All this by correspondence. The study of the Hermetic aphorism, as above, so below, as below, so above, is an extreme interest, as this explains the bonds of reciprocal influence which exists between an individual and terrestrial and celestial nature. The environment radiating its force upon us brings about change inside us, and in the event which occur to us daily. On the other hand, our psychological conditions and our mental state are projected towards nature, and as a consequence for this, fortunate or tragic events may occur in our lives. This Hermetic aphorism has great practical value, which will be revealed only to the zealous student. We will give some examples. 1. An individual keeps his room untidy and in complete disorder. This material fact of a physical nature immediately reflects upon the individual's psyche. He is intellectually and emotionally converted into a replica of the physical condition he maintains. His psyche will be the likeness of his room and vice versa. 2. The same individual from the above example spends the whole day scrupulously cleaning and tidying his room. As a consequence of this, he experiences a careful cleaning of his psyche and feels extraordinarily happy, light, and comfortable. 3. An individual who is bitter and negative habitually meets people who instinctively reject him, and without any reason whatsoever, they may end up hating him. 4. A woman believes she's ugly and feels unattractive. Although she's really fascinating, her mental attitude repels the opposite sex. Further explanation of these cases is not necessary. Within the context of this important theme of the principle of correspondence, we will take a closer look at the relationship between the legal acts to which the individual is subject and the concomitant dependence and lack of freedom, which takes place on the plane of energy. To illustrate this, let us suppose that a wife is not in harmony with her husband and they separate, but they are not divorced. Thus, she is still firmly joined to her husband, and if he is a negative individual who wishes evil to befall her, this woman cannot become detached from these forces. She will continue to receive them, and they will surely continue to harm her even after 10 years apart from her mate. What is the reason for this? The cause resides in the aphorism, as above, so below, as below, so above. Because while there is a legal contract between both spouses, they still are in reality indissolubly joined, so long as the contract is legally binding. The law of men project their influence into the world of energy, which we shall call the astral plane, mental plane, or the fourth dimension, in order to design a place where the vibrations are much more subtle than the material one. What people who are joined by a contract forming a legal entity, as in the case of a corporation, while the articles of incorporation are in force, the partners will remain united, and in each one will have some effect on the life of the rest, either positively or negatively, and in turn will also receive from them a force which will determine the important events in their lives. Thus, there is danger in uniting our lives with those persons affected by heavy negative karma, which in the case of a legal tie will inevitably fall upon us. Through the Principle of Correspondence, it is possible to understand how immensely cruel it is to condemn a felon to life imprisonment. As a result of a law of sapience, the individual will remain a prisoner indefinitely or permanently even after his death. Life imprisonment basically means prison after death. Those in this situation should not despair, and I wish to counsel them to practice a kind of mental defense to attain freedom upon death. This way out, as we could call it, consists of repeating the following prayer every day. I free myself from the law of man and deliver myself into the hand of divine justice. In order for the formula to be effective and for the individual to truly become free, it is important that he should deeply feel what he is saying. If this is repeated mechanically, it will surely fail. It is different when a prisoner is condemned to a capital punishment, as in this case, death frees him. We must also mention the enormous importance of astronomical discoveries or observations for sapiens. If any individual should discover a new star through his telescope, and this star I can't talk. And the star emits subtle energy of a destructive nature. All bodies emit energy, which might be called mass energy. These forces will reach our planet in a very intense form, as a mental channel has been created for them. The temples of ancient Egypt were constructed so that during certain times of the year, a person looking toward the sky through a precisely situated opening would see a specific star known to the constructors, with which the subject would try to establish mental contact in order to receive a positive influence from it. It is also necessary to mention that this teaching of the 7 hermetic keys is basic, so that the student will discover himself what remains hidden or what may be read between the lines. I wish to conclude this commentary on the Principle of Correspondence by honoring the memory of the extraordinary Egyptians who possessed great hermetic knowledge before their decline. Both laymen and ignorant archaeologists have always commented that in ancient Egypt, people were so backward that they worshipped animal gods, which was considered the height of moral decadence. As far as we are concerned, this was the manifestation of the ancient Hermetic wisdom. To explain, the Egyptians had animal gods not to be worshipped by them, but by the ordinary animal, those not set up as gods. The object of creating animal gods was to maintain the purity and elevation of the human race. These magical methods were used to prevent animals from penetrating into the human scale, from being incarnated as sapiens. In the chapter, The Illusion of True Knowledge, we dealt with the incarnation of consciousness, which relates to this subject. Upon receiving the irradiation of man's consciousness, animals partly assimilate the energy of the divine spark as magical fire, which can enable them to enter into the human scale for the first time after they die as animals. This occurs primarily with domestic animals, or those which, for any special reason, are consistently in contact with man, such as a circus dog, for example, as he's exposed closely to human vibrations. I must pause for a moment to imagine the ironic smiles of those who believe that certainly the writer of this book suffers from some mental disorder. I think I understand them perfectly well, because if I had not had the opportunity of verifying the absolute truth of Hermetic science to my satisfaction, or if I was a neophyte in these matters and was reading this book, I would think as they do. On the other hand, if unbelieving readers could change places with me for a few minutes by means of magical transmigration, they would completely agree with me. It is necessary to live the Hermetic experience to confirm that what has been learned intellectually. I also feel obligated to state that the Hermeticism, one does not believe or disbelieve, one simply understands or does not understand. We continue with the explanation of the animal god. When an animal incarnates as a human being for the first time, it will be like an individual on a very inferior level with very strong animal instincts, and will certainly cause great harm to society. It will either become a delinquent or an immortal pervert, as it lacks adequate restraints on its instincts. The animal individual must very gradually rise in level through many reincarnations. It must be understood that if many animals are converted into the sapient species, humanity will face a serious crisis, and this is precisely what is occurring now. By means of ritual magic, the Egyptian priest sacrificed and mummified a dog, for example, and buried it in a secret place. This dog received a name and was anointed as god of the dogs. At the moment of its death, thus, this animal was converted into the occult guardian, which prevented dogs from entering into the human scale, and it has been specifically prepared for this. We reserve the complete, confound explanation of this magical operation, which would only serve to satisfy the curiosity of the unversed. We must add that man can never reincarnate as an animal, and that not everyone reincarnates, but this is a separate subject. The principle of vibration. The principle of vibration states, nothing rests, everything moves, everything vibrates. This law indicates that everything in the universe vibrates, and that nothing remains stationary. Matter, energy, and spirit are only the result of different vibratory states. The spirit represents the extreme pole of the fastest vibrations, whose frequency is so high that it appears to be absolutely still. The other pole is formed by extremely dense matter. Hermeticism states that between both poles there are millions and millions of different intensities and modes of vibration. We know that the molecules comprising matter are in constant vibration, that in turn the atoms forming them are also in constant motion and vibration. In their turn, the electrons and protons are also vibrating rapidly. Without any fear of error, we can confirm that there is nothing in the universe that is not mental matter vibrating at different frequency. Light, heat, magnetism, and electricity are only different vibratory modes. That mysterious plane known as the fourth dimension is only a vibratory state of high frequency. If a person can make his physical body vibrate at a very high frequency, let's call this frequency X, he would physically penetrate into the world of the fourth dimension. Nevertheless, it is not any such remote possibility that interests us, but only the control of our own vibrations. Our thoughts, emotions, or desires, or impulses are only vibrationary states. Our physical body is an assembly of systems which vibrates at the same frequency, and health is only the harmonious vibration of the body. Illness is disharmony, and death is the rupture of the vibratory cohesion of the biological systems. In our personal life, everything revolves around vibrations. If we are happy, it is due to a positive vibration. Sadness is due to a negative vibration. Our thoughts will make us more or less intelligent according to our mental vibration. Each person has a mental wavelength of his own. According to the vibratory frequency of his intelligence, the shorter the mental wave, the more intelligent the individual, and vice versa. The difficulty some people have is communicating comes from the different mental waves. When their vibratory frequencies do not coincide, mutual understanding is impeded. If we wish to communicate with an individual and have him really understand us, we must make an effort to adapt our mental wave to his vibratory state in order to establish perfect affinity. For this explains the surprising difference between two persons who normally understand each other well. One of them will have notably varied his mental wavelength, either by lengthening or shortening it, leaving the other person out of frequency, just as if we tried to tune into a certain radio station on the wrong frequency. There are different reasons for this vibratory drop in people. Health problems, depressive states, inertia, internal conflicts, and intellectual apathy are some of the principal causes. In the case of those individuals who permanently have a very long wavelength or low frequency, this is caused by the individual's lack of intellectual preparation. The environment is also a very powerful influence on a person's vibrations. So we live within an ocean of vibrations that can constantly have an impact on us, awakening similar forces within us. The cosmic and terrestrial space which surrounds us is saturated with vibrations, and they have an important influence on people. One can sense in the in the inhabitants of a city, for example, either a positive or negative vibrationary atmosphere. And the same can occur with a visit to a family where we will immediately feel a warm and positive atmosphere, or a force which repels us. What takes place in our homes is that of the vibrationary radiation of those who live with their whose life of those who live there penetrates the physical structure, impregnating it with positive or negative energy easily sensed by the visitors. And thus, there are homes which awaken in visitors an intolerable sadness, or in some cases, visitors feel a profound depression or even suicidal tendencies. We receive the psychic state of those who live or work in these places, the behavioral habits, the emotional states, the habitual thoughts, and the moral and spiritual standards of the individual determine the goodness of unsuitable or his unsuitability of his vibratory state, which in turn decisively influences his daily life. Family and human groups in general are made up of whirlpools of energy, which are felt by those coming into contact with them. Vibrations accumulate within the individual. That is, he collects good or evil vibrations, and there are times when he is a veritable time bomb to the latent forces within him. These forces are either destructive or creative, and under the influence of an adequate detonator will violently explode, producing either favorable or negative events. The force has the characteristics of greatly affecting anyone who comes into contact with a person whose vibrations are intense, the results being that one can be contaminated by what the sender feels. This is especially true when a sender shares his troubles with another and then feels great relief, while the listener becomes depressed. Perhaps the most vulnerable persons are those in professions such as psychiatry, who are damaged or tainted by contact with their patients' mental scars. Those places where base passions are let loose, such as bars or brothels, or the center of the base and negative vibrations, which noticeably harm those who frequent them. Any man who wishes to be successful in his personal objectives, or who wishes to increase his capacity to accomplish things, either spiritually or materially, must, through self-discipline, raise his vibration in order not to be affected by what is called bad luck or misfortune. It is necessary to practice direct mental hygiene in order not to be affected by elements in the atmosphere surrounding us. These are strong negative forces, actually capable of killing a person because their tone or basic note is destructive and capable of causing disintegration. We know there are sounds or vibrations which can destroy the cohesion of matter in infrasonic, or which can produce medicinal healing ultrasonic. The power of the laser is well known. Vibration, its light can pierce the hardest material. Sapiens unconsciously seek a remedy for his vibrationary disharmony and resorts to good music, which reestablishes his internal equilibrium. Nevertheless, there are musical rhythms so inharmonious that they create a negative state within people. The sound of certain instruments have cadences that under certain conditions cause deep sadness, as in the case of the quena, a type of indigenous flute, We also know that the pernicious effect of sound, which exceeds certain decibel levels and which provoke considerable nervous fatigue, causes loss of both manual and intellectual efficiency. The vibrations of the spoken word also has a powerful effect on listeners, either beneficial or harmful. There are those with great personal charm, but whose voices, although not disagreeable, are repellent. This depends on the result of the impact of the sonic oscillations. If this impact is harmonious with others, we will feel affected and liking, and vice versa. People are not aware that they are receiving either well or badly according to their vibrations. It is easy to verify the influence of an individual's oscillatory energy. There is a very simple experiment which consists of having two groups of indoor plants which must be put in separate places. One group of plants should be spoken to every day as if they were human beings and given thoughts of love, friendship, and fortitude. The other group should be abandoned to chance. As the days go by, it will be seen that the plants spoken to and given positive attention become very beautiful and grow faster, although they have the same like earth, light, water as the other. Another very simple experiment is to test the inductive power of our vibrations on people. For this, it is necessary to contact someone who does not like us. After overcoming the feeling of repulsion this person provokes in us, we must make an effort to feel deep sympathy and cordiality for him. After a short time, we see a radical change in him, and he will become he will come to feel very friendly towards us. Many times it is we ourselves who are cause rejection due to our hostility towards others. Through the principle of vibration, it is possible to understand the curses really exist, but have nothing supernatural about them. They are only the condensation and the projection of powerful destructive vibrations. The same phenomena exists with blessings, but act inversely. When a couple who are lovers speak words of love, the pleasure experience is not only due to the knowledge that they are loved, but also to the vibrationary influence of the words. If we reflect on this, it is possible to conceive that the existence of magical words, which are only a combination of letters that are produce oscillatory phenomena. The traditional karate shout "ka," for example, was originally conceived in order to effectively paralyze the adversary, in which it had to be emitted in a certain tone and frequency, because if it was not, it would have no effect. The attentive student who meditates on the principle of vibration will be able to understand things of great importance. The one without eyes to see or ears to hear will remain on the threshold of the mystery. The principle of polarity. The principle of polarity states everything is dual. Everything has two poles. Everything has its pair of opposites, like the unlike are the same. Opposites are identical in nature, but different in degree. Extreme meets all truth, but half-truths, all paradoxes, may be reconciled. The principle involves the teaching that unity as such does not exist in the universe, because everything is dual. Everything has two faces or opposite poles. The most profound secrets of life are hidden behind the simple fact as it is polarity which maintains the rhythm of life. If there were no opposite poles, life would not be possible. The basic point to be understood in the study of the polarity is the fact that the opposites are always present in the same element. This law can never be applied in different elements. Temperature has two extremes, cold and heat, but cannot speak of the positive pole of the temperature is related to the negative pole of electricity. The principle of polarity works along a vibrationatory scale of degrees in which a strength is manifested, a gradation which goes from the positive to the negative. Thus, light and darkness represent two extremes of the same thing. In one case, there is the presence of light, and in the other, the lack of it. Love and hate are opposite poles of the same thing. That is, the human feelings of attraction and repulsion. Spirit and matter are the same thing, but are manifested in opposite vibrations. The same is true with life and death and good and evil. It is necessary to note that in these terms there is no absolute, as no one can state what is absolute cold or heat. For example, we simply speak more or less of a quantity of something as a given at that given moment. Thus, undoubtedly, we could say that love is less hate than no love, and fear is less bravery than pure bravery. These two poles can always be classified as positive and negative, and their difference is just a question of degree. This is why Hermeticism upholds the feasibility of mental transmutation. That is, the transforming something into its opposite. Hate may be transmuted into love, poverty into riches, cowardice into bravery, and ignorance into wisdom, by means of sliding along the scale of polarity. There's always an extreme positive and extreme negative, the positive pole being of a higher nature than the negative. Courage is the positive, which with respect to fear, light with respect to darkness, love with respect to hate. The Hermeticist, acting as a true scientist of the mind, can raise the internal vibrations at will and transmute negative into positive. According to the Kabbalion, the undesirable is slain by changing its polarity. Illness can be converted into health by changing its polarity through the power of the mind, which polarizes at the extreme opposite of what it is trying to overcome. Logically, it is only possible to transmute opposites of the same thing, as it would not be possible in any way to transmute a pear into a peach. On the other hand, it is possible to transform a green pear into a ripe pear. In occultism, there is a well-known symbol found in an ancient esoteric book, the snake biting its own tail. Specifically, this represents polarity, in which the two extremes are perpetually attracted and seek to devour each other. Although this never occurs, vacuum attracts plenitude, innocence, and experience are mutual absorbed. Under this principle, the existence of an accessible truth to sapiens is his habitual condition of life is denied. And we must maintain that all truth is semi-truth, and it is only possible to reach absolute truth by raising oneself above the principle of polarity, beyond opposites, to reach the world of cause. Naive people believe that the time will come when good will triumph over evil in the world in a definite manner. According to the principle, the victory of either good or evil is impossible. Good Good and evil represent the two extremes of something that are therefore absolutely relative. If a fox enters a chicken coop and devours a chicken, it is very bad for the hen, but very good for the fox. This is only following the natural principle of staying alive. In reality, evil works for good and good for evil. Life works for death, for from the moment one is born, one starts to die. Death works for life, as all destruction is a transformation which creates a new form of life. What would happen if to the light, if there was no darkness? Does not light owe its existence to the fact that darkness exists? Solely from the evidence that something exists, we must immediately know that the opposite is also a reality. Due to polarity, man and woman are attracted and try to fuse. This is the law of the eternal serpent, which constantly bites its own tail. It is very interesting to analyze the aphorism that extremes meet. If we apply that to love, for example, we can verify that it's easier to transform hate into love than to convert indifference into love. As opposites meet, the distance is shorter from one extreme to another than from the middle of the scale to an extreme pole. Hermetically speaking, we may say that the shortest distance from one point to another is not a straight line, but a circle. A circle represents the gradual scale, which runs between two poles. The positive represents by number 100 and the negative by 0. Thus, figures are entirely arbitrary, and for demonstration purposes only, we maintain that it's easier to cross the bridge from 0 to 100 than to go from 50 to 100. The drawing shows this, as the distance is much shorter than if we lay out the circumference of the circle as a straight line. In our example, number 50 is the symbol of eternal indecision and apathy, representing those who are lukewarm, who have no place in the kingdom of God. This explains the phenomenon of conversion, which one individual changes his ideology for a diametrically opposite one. This secret may act as consolation to those with serious problems. They are closer to the success than they may think. Only mediocrity has no remedy. Hermeticism maintains that indecision is more fatal than error. The reason for this is clear. Those who are able to read between the lines and digest the knowledge will derive great wisdom. The ancient alchemists held that if it is possible to transmute lead into gold, in some cases this referred to a material act, and in others it was symbolic. Gold is also one end of the my bad. Gold is only one end of the scale of metals. Therefore, the alchemists changed the vibration and the polarization of the lead lead was transformed into gold. When this refers to the transformation of the internal metals into spiritual gold, the example is equally valid. Following the principle of mental transmutation employed by the advanced hermeticists, we will make a brief sketch of the mechanism that must be employed, although this will be useless in the hands of those who have no first reached internal unification under the command of the superior I. This subject will be covered in subsequent pages. We have already explained that there are many planes of vibration, As regards the principle of mental transmutation, for the sake of the simplicity, we will speak of two basic planes, the superior world of cause and the lower world of effects, as shown in diagram 5. The lower world of effect is the physical plane. The superior world of causes is the plane of the emanation of life. The Hermeticists, in order to accomplish a process of transmutation, rises to the world of his superior I and polarizes himself through his mind in the pole opposite to the vibration he wishes to destroy. Recall that the undesirable is slain by changing its polarity. This is the equivalent to rising above the effect of a phenomenon which the individual may be suffering at a certain time. But this process, a vibration, is changed degree by degree until one reaches what is desired. Even though this might seem easy in theory, in order to achieve this in practice, a rigid discipline and the prior creation of the superior I is required. Otherwise, this will never be more than just a theory. Recall the aphorism about the Kabbalion, which says mind, as well as the metals and elements, may be transmuted from the state to state, degree to degree, condition to condition, pole to pole, vibration to vibration. In order to put the mental or alchemical transmutation into practice, it is first necessary to learn to change the polarity of our mind, as otherwise we will not be able to influence our environment. All process of transmutation, whether it is an attempt to process of transmutation, whether it's an attempt to change our internal world or the material world, it's always a mental operation, as all in the mind. It is very interesting for the student to be able to not only to change his own mental state, but also that of other people who are suffering from negative or destructive vibrations of any kind. From this point of view of the analysis of the daily problems, polarity is a very useful key, as it enables people to appreciate the true value of their conflicts or obstacles without magnifying or underestimating them. The Hermeticist will know, for example, that if he finds himself temporarily in a distressing situation, it's possible to change this gradually, polarizing towards the opposite until the other extreme is effectively reached. The time required for this operation will depend on the importance of what is desired, as everything has its gestation time in nature. Something of a little importance will be accomplished very quickly. A much larger project will take a longer time to bear fruit. Let us keep before us the great Hermetic lesson that the undesirable is slain by changing its polarity. Meditating on this will enable the student to reach great knowledge. And we're going to stop here. We're at the halfway point of the seven keys of wisdom, which is chapter 10, and we'll pick up on it at the principle of rhythm. So thank you for listening to part 1 of 2 of chapter 10. And if you'd like to guest read, definitely give David Berry I was going to say give him a call, but you don't have his phone number. Send him an email or send him a message in Discord. Okay, I will talk to you guys next time. Bye.